Now, let me give you an example, okay, of a Muslim that came in for treatment. He'd done his Hajj, and the Hajj is a pilgrimage, and it's quite a serious thing. It's like one of the pillars of Islam. Prays 5 times a day, eats halal food, is a grandfather, and has a serious cocaine addiction, right? A friend of a friend was talking about what I do, and they were really, really, those people in there, English person or Muslim, really certain perception about addicts or addiction. And I really take offense to that. And they're not my people. I'm sorry, you're not my people if you're going to have that. You need to go and educate yourself. And what I've also heard from people across the board is, if this didn't happen to me, I wouldn't be the better version of myself.
100%.
If I didn't go through this shit, I wouldn't even know who I am. We make assumptions that rock bottom is I lost everything.
Yeah.
Right? Rock bottom could be I've lost my dignity. I've lost my own self-respect. I've lost the fact that my wife doesn't trust me and may never trust me. How do I rebuild those bridges? We can do this with more compassion. My loved one needs help. I'm just going to help them. Park all the rest, whether your disappointments, your culture, your expectations, or make it about you. It's not about you. People are drowning. And I think we need to really open our eyes, because we are losing people. There's a high death toll. It's a crisis now. So let's just come together and actually just look at what's the solution and how can we be collaborative and create safe spaces.
Welcome to School of Rock Bottom with Oliver Mason. I'm an actor, a voiceover artist and a recovery coach who's been in recovery many years, and I know firsthand that rock bottom can be the greatest teacher and the springboard for a beautiful life. And as you know, I interview fellow creatives and all inspiring people that have hit rock bottom, survived and thrived. This is a podcast of hope and how to get out of the darkness into the light. And that's why I'm so excited today, because I've got the radiant Raffa in the studio.
Wow, thank you. Radiant.
Why not, eh?
I'm feeling radiant right now.
Fantastic. Well, you look it.
Do I?
Yeah, it's lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming down.
Thank you.
For those that don't know Raffa, a very, very quick bio. So Raffa works in addiction. For over 2 decades in the private sector of addiction and drug rehabilitation, starting off by running creative art therapy groups, but now, after having set up other rehabs, runs one herself in plush Watford.
It is plush.
You're the head honcho.
I'm the gaffer.
You're the gaffer.
Gaffer the Raffa.
Wow, you see everything. Oh, I love that. Gaffer the Raffa.
Yeah.
So this is a really, really great perspective to have today for someone that's been working in recovery for a very, very long time and also runs a private rehab as well. Going to have a wealth of experience. So thank you so much for coming down to talk about that. I usually start with a rock bottom, but actually that's going to be my second question today. I'm going to mix it up and actually ask you, firstly, what got you into this line of work in the first place?
Okay, so it's a good question, because I get asked that question a lot, and I think people want a quick answer. It is not a quick answer for me, and it's actually been a lifelong journey. So I think we kind of had a little bit of a chat about when I had this experience at the Royal Albert Hall. My dad took me to the Royal Albert Hall, and we're listening to two very well-known scholars, Muslim scholars. And I've never been to the Royal Albert Hall, so I was really paying attention to the talk, speeches that were happening, or the talks. Very, very interesting. I was kind of, wow, look at this place. But there was one speaker who really got my attention. He was a doctor, because it was the first time he talked about addiction. And at that point, bearing in mind this was over 40 years ago, saying, look, it's not about going back home. This is our home. We are second, third generation, right? This is about, we are here and we are going to help people in our communities. And what that looks like could be going to AA meetings. Again, I never heard of AA. Talks about Alcoholics Anonymous, because that is what is aligned to our values. So we're going to help people in our communities with this. So going to AA meetings, CA meetings, he went broader on to talk about fellowship and maybe even having these meetings within different community settings. And I just remember very clearly thinking to myself, like heartfelt and up here, was like, wow, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Wow.
I was so impressed and inspired. I mean, I could go on. It was a long talk. But it was a clear moment. And fast forward, 40 years, I would say I've had a shit sandwich I've had a shit sandwich of a life because I have a lot of lived experience of addiction, which includes being married to an alcoholic for 10 years. So that was pretty difficult, I've got to say. And all that comes with it. So I've kind of had this experience of what's happened in my personal life, obviously. And yes, I had an epiphany way back when I was younger, because I kind of wondered, well, how is it that I ended up here?
Yeah.
It's almost like I got what I wished for. But if you make a wish, if you want something, you're going to go through quite a journey, right?
Yeah.
To be good at this. And I think
it's a real fire in your belly, isn't it?
It's a real fire in your belly. So my children have gone through a hell of a lot. It has personally affected, and I had to rebuild my life from nothing. I lost everything, everything, right? So you're rebuilding your life, and so now in the position that I'm in, or working even creatively with art therapy, and as well as running a treatment centre, I have that lived experience because I have walked in those shoes, in your shoes. I understand the pain you're going through. I understand what your family must be experiencing, your kids must be experiencing. I also have that empathy for the client in front of me, and obviously for their situation. So you've got to have that lived experience. And I think that's what makes the difference. That's what makes the work that I do with most of my staff, if not all, amazing, because they all have different lived experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know how hard you work. I mean, I work, I work in rehabs nowhere near as many hours as you. And I know you've got a day off today, and you've used that to come and do this and help my listeners and viewers. So I hugely, hugely thank you for that. Right. I've got a couple of questions based on what you just said, if that's all right. One is, it seemed quite pertinent, especially that a Muslim scholar said that to you. And I just was going to ask you why that was so powerful. Yeah. First off.
Okay. At the time, obviously, I was about 16, 17. I did not expect to hear something like that.
Yeah.
You're hearing, how to be a good person, following, praying, doing certain rituals, or understanding, God, the concept of God, or whatever it is, you go into sort of a religious faith-based meeting. It could be any number of topics, but to hear about real life from someone in my faith base hit me.
Yeah.
It just hit me because it was just different.
Yeah.
And aligned to me, actually, that sits with my values, and that values of any human being. It's like, this is universal, but it was more profound. I mean, maybe it was more profound, and I really didn't give it that attention, but it was like, wow, that has basically guided my life purpose.
Wow.
It really has. And I'm really proud of that, because at one point I was thinking, why have I had such a shit sandwich of a life? Why is it I've ended up here? But it's been really hard work, because it's cost me emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's had quite a toll on me to end up doing what I'm doing. And then I go back to this moment and I think, wow, is that the path that I was kind of directed on? Right. So that is probably where the faith base comes in.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, someone is, in that moment I've been directed, possibly. Right?
Was it quite powerful hearing that? Because I'd imagine maybe in the Muslim community in at that period of time, maybe, I'm guessing, obviously, that it wasn't talked about a huge amount.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. That was the first time I heard about it. And probably not for another 10, 15 years even after that. I've not really heard. It's not in the mainstream.
Got it.
It is more now.
Yeah.
But maybe that's what caught my attention. And I thought, wow, this is alluding to reality a bit, because he was talking about the community. He wasn't talking about Muslims or people in the BAME community having these issues, but he was talking about in our community people who have these issues.
Yeah.
So kind of that lends it towards, okay, what is the reality?
Yeah.
Right? What is really going on? So obviously we'll talk about that more, but it's kind of dispelling the myths.
100%. And
dispelling the myths.
Something about breaking the stigma and the stereotypes we're going to really jump into in a minute.
Yeah.
I normally start each podcast asking the guest what their rock bottom is. And, we're not going to get into that with yours specifically today, but obviously running a rehab, working in recovery for over a couple of decades, you've come across a lot. What are people's rock bottoms like? I mean, is it this sort of stereotype that it's always someone that's, lost everything, or or have you seen every shape and form of rock bottom over the years?
I've seen every shape and form, and sometimes it's not even the thing you think is rock bottom.
Yeah.
It could be the look on their child's face of disappointment. Is the fact that you're not getting your texts or phone calls through to somebody you love.
Yeah.
And they just said, I'm so disappointed in you, or don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
They haven't lost the house, or they haven't lost a job or anything. And people white knuckle it, don't they? Highly functioning survival mode, and you carry on for years and years because the price isn't high. Nobody knows, or somehow you're navigating it. You're kind of on the periphery of not hitting that rock bottom, but you actually have.
Yeah.
I think we make assumptions that rock bottom is I lost everything.
Yeah.
Right. Rock bottom could be I've lost my dignity. I've lost my own self-respect. I've lost the fact that my wife doesn't trust me and may never trust me. How do I rebuild those bridges? And so people carry on because they feel lost. It's like, shit, how do I come back from that?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've got a couple of friends in recovery with very different rock bottoms. Without going into their story too much, but I've got one that had to lose literally limbs.
Yeah.
And in order to get that kind of clarity that, yes, this is rock bottom and I need to do something about it. I got another friend who never used to drink during the day. She one day decided to open a bottle of wine at lunchtime. She fell asleep. There was a knock on the door at 5:00 and it was the head teacher with a 7-year-old daughter saying he didn't pick the daughter up from school. For her, that was absolute basement rock bottom. Hasn't had a drink in over 10 years. Both serious, I get that, but both quite different.
I could go to extremes like that as well. But when people they've had an awakening because they're scared. Like, shit, this is it. Like a near life death experience. That's what I mean. There's a real radar levels of rock bottoms, but yeah, you can go through complete extremes.
I love what you just said, the word awakening, because I think a lot of people outside of recovery would look at a rock bottom as maybe quite a shameful, awful place to be, and of course it is, but also there's the flip side that it can be an awakening and it can be a rebirth. And
yes,
I think the famous quote is, it's the foundation from which I built my life. That also you've witnessed, haven't you?
I have witnessed that, and it's amazing because all people that come into rehab, and this is about, looking about all people from all communities, by the way, right? Inclusive.
Yeah.
Everyone to varying levels hate themselves.
Yeah.
They hate themselves. There's no self-esteem, no self-worth. It's like the guilt, the shame is all tied in. No boundaries, no self-esteem, no self-worth. I'm a shit human being. And just holding on to the fact that what is the purpose? Why am I even here?
Yeah.
Right. So, and when I listened to a podcast to do with someone very inspirational, and it was something to do with stop hating yourself. And I've, in my process of doing recovery workshops, I do psychosocial as well as kind of embedded with the creative process. And sometimes I don't do all the drawing. Sometimes it is about just delivering the gems. And so we listened to this in the group because I'd listened to it for my own self. And it is almost like when we say, oh, you've got to love yourself and you've got to, build your self-esteem. Well, hang on a minute. Let's just get it. Let's go back to the basics. Let's stop hating ourselves. Let's start with that, shall we? That is the signal for change.
Yeah.
That's the signal for change.
Yeah.
Right? So an awakening could be, wow, my rock bottom is I really hate myself.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't think I could get even lower. Kind of in, so there is the turning point. There is the opportunity.
Wow. I mean, that is so super powerful. Also, it just got me thinking as well, you having witnessed so many different rock bottoms and different, cultures and communities, you're going to be a brilliant person to ask about this. There's so much stigma in certain cultures around addiction and stereotypes. I just wonder if I could ask you about that, because obviously you've got a very specific lens, because you're in those communities yourselves. So I just wondered what kind of stigmas exist, particularly maybe in the Muslim community or the Asian community around addiction.
Well, interesting enough, when I was preparing for this podcast, I wrote my notes and I kind of like, right, yes, we all acknowledge there is stigma and shame, or guilt and shame mixed in with or compounded by religious and cultural expectations. And I thought to myself, yeah, but so what do we do with that, right? I mean, it's so many different varying levels of it. You know, with the Muslim community, shame focus sometimes, I think, with the judgment, because there are some serious consequences. It's like, you don't want your parents knowing certain things. What's going to be the long-term consequences for your children getting married and you're kind of blacklisted because, well, we don't want you involved with our family, even though, say, with your son or your father or some family member who has gone through this challenge of addiction, right? Overcome it, transform their lives, but there still could be some consequences about this within the community.
Yeah.
So it's a reality. And I think when we say we're going to break the stigma, I think, as I said, looking at this myself, I thought this isn't going to, I don't want to be negative about this or kind of like, but I want to have a reality check and saying, let's talk about the cold, hard truths that may take a few generations.
Yeah.
Number one. So the stigma of shame could be anything. You know, when I got divorced, to give an example, my parents were great. They didn't say much, but they certainly didn't make me feel like shit, right?
Yeah.
And it was only much, much, much later. I think my dad was talking about something that's kind of about the family, and he said they don't get invited, or maybe people treat them a certain way because me being divorced, and I thought, wow, they're experiencing shame as a result of what's happened with me. And that's a mild thing, divorce, but that still had lots of consequences for them, which they never shared. So I didn't really get the full picture until that moment. And it really did make me feel crap.
Yeah.
Right? I thought, well, it's not their fault. They had nothing to do with that. Unfortunately, there were certain things that happened in my life. Being married to an alcoholic, and what I had to go through there, and which I tried everything, but, it's like, wow. So my parents suffered as a consequence, and people don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Rather than supporting them and being there for them, it's like, yeah, look how your daughter turned out. Wow, what a failure. Do you know what I mean? Right, or not being invited to things, being treated differently and things like that. So if that's just divorce, can you imagine if you've got an alcohol addiction or substance misuse or any number of mental health issues?
Yes.
It's like, so there's something wrong with you.
Can I ask you a slightly naive question? Someone who doesn't have this lived experience. Is that a cultural thing or is that a religious thing?
I think it's cultural. I think there's a lot of complexities because this is certainly, as a Muslim, there's nowhere in faith base at all. You can, anyone, if you want to find out, you read and do your own research there, right? And it's very accessible on the internet, finding about Islam, but looking at the Quran and things like that. And the teachings and examples are there.
Yeah.
Probably a hell of a lot more insightful or more forward thinking than we are now, I think.
Yeah.
When I've seen examples from like 1,000 years ago and how Muslims were to how they are now, I'm thinking, so our cultural identity overshadows or is so meshed in our religious identity.
Okay. Now,
I haven't been brought up with a lot of culture. That's what's probably different about me, for various reasons. Just we didn't really have that many family here. So I didn't get the full on, maybe summertime we'd get a lot of family visiting and you had to put on a show, put on an act and be a certain way, right? Full performance to be the part. But so separate to that, so culture, so I think it's very indicative of cultures across the board, whether it's BAME, you could be an Italian family, Greek family, Irish family. When I was watching My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I thought, oh my God, that's my family.
Right.
Get married. I thought, wow, I can really identify with this film. So, and she was just like, I don't want to get married.
Because I think
we do have a lot of similarities.
So sorry to overlap you there. I think a lot of people just sort of looking in from the outside go, it's probably just shame-based because...
religion.
Because of religion, you're not allowed to drink.
I don't think so.
That's just a tiny, tiny bit of it, right?
I think it's a drop in the ocean. I think, yes, there is some things, obviously shame, like getting divorced, that is allowed. It's not encouraged. I have friends who have been multiple divorces. And in this day and age, that's just what's going to happen. You get divorced, you move on, and you get on with your life. That's it. That is actually in our religion.
Yeah.
We add the culture is the added layer of the stories we make up and our perceptions and the consequences maybe of how that might be impacting our family, how we're perceived. Right. And I think that's a massive barrier then to being authentic, to being open, to being honest and say, look, I'm really struggling with certain things. Where is the safety in that? So we're not actually safe to be vulnerable.
Right.
Where do you go then?
So that's seen as a weakness very much.
I think it's a weakness. I was sharing something when I was really drowning at one point in my life to one of my best friends. I think I shared this with you, right? And I shared something with her very personal at the time. And she said, come and see me. And, I thought, oh my God, thankfully, I've got someone I can, in my culture, in my community, I can speak to, because as much as all my other friends who are not Muslim, they would not understand not fully grasp certain aspects of what I'm struggling with, because it's like maybe Catholic guilt. I don't know. It's like, God, you feel really shit as a person, and maybe that level of religion there does come into that, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to see my friend, and I shared quite a lot of what I was really struggling with, and then I never heard from her again. So this is a lifelong friend. I never heard from her. So these are stories that have happened to me time and time again, but I've heard with other people. So what is that? That's not religion. Yeah. I don't know what that is, but it's pretty messed up. So I think we need to own some.
What do you think that is looking back? I mean, obviously you
I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's not religion. I tell you now.
Yeah.
That's someone else's own issues, and someone I thought I really knew very well. And like I said, it's happened a few times. But then you just shut down. You think, I can't share with other Muslims. I then can go to counselling maybe, or see other people who are neutral without that level of whatever that's there. Because at least I won't get judged. At least the door won't be closed to me.
Yeah.
At least, I might get the help that I need.
I think sort of looking in as well, I think it's quite a kind of, I don't want to say white privilege thing. I think it's maybe going a bit too far. But, a lot of people talking about sort of vulnerability being a superpower and all of that stuff. It seems quite white and Western. A lot of white Western voices are saying that quite loudly. Yeah. So for someone like me, maybe in my communities, it feels like, we can talk about vulnerability and fragility as a superpower and it's all great. But actually, talking to you today, it sounds like it's not as easy as that everywhere.
No, I don't think so.
No, I agree.
It's going to be quite closed in-house, put it that way. And I think people can turn that against you. To be really mindful about what you're sharing. And even just generally in recovery, are you compelled to share everything with everybody? Have they earned the right? Have they earned it? So I think, addiction is a great leveler. I mean, to me, it's the ideal community, number one. I really do. And I love the fact that I work in addiction. Yeah. I love the fact that I'm probably freer and more authentic in a rehab with people in recovery. Okay. And I'm very protective about people in recovery, whoever they may be, because it's like, wow, people have so many misconceptions about that, of those types of people.
Talking about that specifically, right. I mean, I know the answer to this because I work in rehabs as well. But what kind of people go to rehab then?
Everybody and everyone. I was going to say addiction affects everybody. Yeah. Your next door neighbor, or your granny, or your sister, your cousin. It's not. And actually, what I've experienced in the Asian community, or especially Muslim community, is when I've been to talks, and they start talking a bit more about, obviously, the drug and alcohol situation. Right? They're getting a bit more real, because it is a huge problem. Yeah, is addressing young people. Let's talk about the young people. Now, let me give you an example, of a Muslim that came in for treatment. He'd done his Hajj, and the Hajj is a pilgrimage, and it's quite a serious thing. It's like one of the pillars of Islam. Prays 5 times a day, eats halal food, is a grandfather, and has a serious cocaine addiction, right? He's no young man. He's in his 60s, coming in for treatment with his family. And I'm really glad his family were there to support him, actually, because I thought he's going to come on his own, because I think, my God, our granddad, or our father figure, our father is struggling with addiction. He's done all these things. He's very active in his community and he's struggling with cocaine.
Yeah.
Let's just get real about this stereotypes and generally with everybody, a friend of a friend was talking about what I do and they were really, really, those people in there, English person, not Muslim, really certain perception about addicts or addiction. And I really take offense to that. And they're not my people. I'm sorry, you're not my people if you're going to have that. You need to go and educate yourself.
Yeah.
You can go and Google.
Yeah.
Go and educate yourself.
Yeah.
Because this could
send them to my podcast.
I tell you now, because you could be your best friend who's struggling, can't talk to you because you have a certain attitude.
Yeah.
Right? So we hide. People are hiding. Right? So you're coming into treatment and actually that is incredibly brave thing to do. Number one. And I tell everybody that. And I mean it. Because rehab is seen as the last resort, isn't it?
Is it always necessary, do you think? Rehab? I mean, say you're someone who's got quite a severe addiction. Is it possible to get well without rehab, do you think? Or do you think you can throw yourself into the community?
It's a mixture of things. It's like, hang on a minute, how long have you been going? Have you been suffering with this?
Yeah.
What else have you tried? What is your history?
Yeah.
Right? Let's get really real here. What support do you have? Can somebody be there with you around the clock for the week?
Yeah.
Right. Safety. Will you need a detox, a home detox? Are you going to have a seizure? So you're going to have like medically, health-wise, there are risks. So let's be clear about those risks. Excuse me. And then look at, okay, if I'm really serious about this, I could do in a community setting. And people do, and they can't afford. I work in a private clinic, so the finances.
Yeah.
But it's time. Do you need help right now, or are you going to wait a year? Right? And that doesn't mean people are rich or anything when they come in for treatment where I am. It's the fact that a few people have lent money, or the family have come together. But you've just spent that money on your drug of choice in a week.
Yeah.
But you're coming into rehab now, so you can use that money for something that's actually going to benefit you, right? So people blow money, double the money on other things, but then they think twice about coming in for help.
And like you say, the medical support. I mean, it was only really until I started working in recovery that, I couldn't believe that alcohol and benzos are really the only two drugs that you can die from in withdrawal when you stop taking them. I mean, heroin you can die from, but it's a lot less likely. Often it's a secondary thing like extreme vomiting or diarrhea or something like that. But alcohol and benzos, can kill you when you stop taking them.
So you've got to have everything in place and actually really, like I said, if you're going to do that in the community, I don't know a community setting like really well, but there are reasons for people doing that, and that could work. But it's the continuing support. You're with peers, you're with a lot of people, and you need that peer support. And overcoming guilt and shame, at least in the context of a rehab, to some degree, right, is because you're with everyone in the same boat. Everybody, the high and mighty, as well as, somebody who doesn't have a job or homeless. Everyone is in the same boat. And I think it's that rebuilding of yourself. You think, wow, they don't look like they would have that problem. They're really successful in their business, or they're this, that. I think, well, you don't have to feel so shit about yourself.
Yeah.
Number one.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm going to say normalizing, but having more compassion for yourself. Number one, like, wow, I can see I have a problem now. And I'm not alone. Right? So I think that makes a huge amount of difference. You're able to then do the work that's necessary once you're medically stabilized. Right, I'm going to throw myself into this now. What do I need to learn? How do I want to live my life? And I think the journey actually sometimes is a lot deeper than, I just need a psychosocial, psychoeducational material, CBT, DBT. I can throw all the DBTs at you, do all this, and then I'm good to go. People have a profound journey about their identity. I probably do, in my art therapy, I've probably done more workshops on values, identity, and self-esteem.
I remember when I did art therapy in treatment, and I thought to myself, I'm not really too sure about this. As someone that comes from a creative background, I can't believe, looking back, the kind of hesitation I had that this would be anything but extremely powerful. And I sobbed throughout the whole thing. I was asked to draw something, that was quite intimate and thought-provoking. As soon as I started to draw, I just sobbed and sobbed. And I couldn't believe how powerful it was.
It's really powerful.
Incredibly powerful.
So I think there's a lot of healing. I've put some notes here about a lot of healing and repair.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, okay, once you have detox or once you have some time to, and some people do come in actually already sober, right? Not necessarily intoxicated into treatment, but a lot of people do. They're totally intoxicated, mullered.
Yeah.
Like one last hoo-ha.
That's a good 90s word, mullered.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it when you say it even more. Go on, do it again.
Go on.
Oh,
and you get mullered.
There you go, mullered.
They come in, right, now I'm ready. I'm going to, because they know this is life-changing.
Yeah.
And they don't want, and a lot of people don't want to. Like, I have to, but I don't want to. And then during the process, and it is a massive life-changing process, right? Like I said, you're literally getting magically stabilized in whatever way. So you could be a binge drinker, or you could have other maybe health issues you don't even know about, or, you know, dealing with. Then it's like, wow, I can see now what I need to do for myself. Now the fog is lifted, your brain fog. Now I'm feeling a little bit better in myself. What is the healing I need to do here? Because as Dr. Gabor Mate talks about, it's like not why the addiction, it's why the pain.
Yes.
Right?
Love that.
In his book, I really loved it. I don't want to put a plug in his books, but his books are amazing.
Right. We can plug his book. He's pretty cool.
Dr. Gabor Mate, The Realm of the Hungry Ghost. I've read that and it is amazing because it humanizes people.
Yeah.
So let's humanize all people in their challenges of life, right? So the stigma is about dehumanizing and disconnection, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Stigma is you're different to us, you're not normal.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me, but I've seen lots of normal people to me are not normal.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not normal, I don't need to be that.
Yeah.
Right. So the reparation, the redemption, the healing, it's like, wow. So if you didn't get, and what I've also heard from people across the board is, if this didn't happen to me, I wouldn't be the better version of myself.
100%.
If I didn't go through this shit, I wouldn't even know who I am.
Yeah.
I would be like X, Y, and Z people in my life, and I don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
So
that's School of Rock Bottom right there.
I'm telling you, it's like, wow, I've had the most profound journey within.
I say this to people in rehab as well, that this is actually a privilege. This is an amazing moment. And often people look at you and you're like, are you kidding? I've lost everything. But how many times in your life, if you sort of, if say you're a regular Joe, you might have sort of like a bit of a growth spurt at 13, another moment at 18. You know, people get to have them at 80 or 45 or 29.
Yeah.
What do I want to do with my life? What is my purpose? What, you know, do I want to be here and what do I want to change?
100%. I mean, we have a lot of people coming after they're retired.
Yeah.
They don't know who they are. If they don't have their job and everything that goes with it, especially if you're in a higher sort of certain positions in life, it's like, wow, so I don't get that anymore. It's like, I'm now stripped away from that. Who am I?
I remember actually bumping into a liver specialist that I'd worked with once in a meeting. That really took away the stigma. Also talking about people that were retired. There was a client once that was 88. She started drinking when she was 85.
Yeah.
She only used to have a sherry at Christmas, and then her partner passed away and she hit the bottle. You know, if that doesn't sort of knock a stereotype. What I'm about to ask you is a bit of an odd one, potentially. But I was going to ask you this. If a Muslim walks into treatment and sees you, is that a comfort to them?
Do you know, it's a really mixed question, that, because I don't know if anyone would be that fully honest, to be honest, to repeat myself. I don't know how honest they would be with themselves, because until I share some things about me, and I think I go straight into and it's about building that therapeutic alliance, isn't it? It's about unconditional positive regard. Go straight in there and meet clients, and I will allude to a little bit about myself and to put people at ease, because also people from the other spectrum is like, well, she's never had a drink in her life.
Right.
Like, she's never done this. What was she doing it? What would you know? You know, so I kind of put people at ease. But and I think that's a really good question. But I've worked with some Muslims recently, and they were, when I shared about certain things in my life, they were like, wow, okay. So so you understand about certain things. Yeah. It's like I have to put them at ease to share something about myself, maybe.
Right.
That don't judge. And actually, it's a thing about judging people by the book by the cover.
Yeah.
Muslims do it too, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Everyone does it. So then I'm like, wow, hang on, who is she? Why is she here? Oh, therefore I can't share all about my life. She might know people in the community.
Right.
I don't know what goes through their mind.
Yeah, yeah.
It could be.
So there's a comfort, but there's also a lot of hesitation and questions.
I have to break down the barriers really quick and just be real with people straight away. But I don't put pressure on anyone, you know. It's like, just be. It's like you have the freedom to be. Probably for the first time, where you're opening up in treatment. So honoring, making sure that clients feel safe, all clients feel safe, you know, people coming from different backgrounds. It's like, well, yeah, I've heard it all, mate. You couldn't shock me.
Yeah.
You could not shock me, and I could probably shock you with quite a few things about my own life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but whatever you say to me is private, safe, and it stays here.
Yeah.
That's it. Because you want that person to get the most benefit out of it. So I am actually aware of how I might be perceived. I'm not kidding myself.
Yeah.
So I address it in different ways with different people.
And I guess people have a sort of preconceived idea as well, who aren't maybe from your communities
Absolutely.
as well.
I wind people up big time. I wind people up when they ask, you know, a little bit about my background, or where are you from? And, you know, people want to know what country I'm from.
Right.
I don't really talk about that because I think, why do you need to know that?
Yeah.
What difference does that make? Where'd you come from? Are you married? I said, yeah, I got married at really young to my cousin. This happened. I just spin a whole yarn of bullshit, and most people believe it. So therefore, that's your stereotype image of what you think I am. But you could actually believe that stuff I'm telling you.
Do you think you get asked a lot more questions than your white colleagues?
No, I think no.
Okay.
No. I don't think so, because I'm the gaffer.
It's a boss thing.
I think it's a boss thing now.
Yeah, and you've got like your really cool gaffer room, haven't you? Your little bit tucked away.
Yeah.
You know, it's like up in the ivory tower, like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, pressing buttons. What is she doing in there?
I then make myself approachable. I am approachable, but I think that comes into it now.
Yeah,
less so. But
you said something beforehand while we were having a coffee, and I thought it was quite powerful. And you said that maybe your own communities are stopping you getting well.
Yes,
that really struck me.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
So when I was giving myself some time to go through experiences and my life journey and what I'd like to share today with you, I thought to myself, that's all well and good saying these are the barriers and this is, you know, you need some resources, and maybe there's a discrimination and racism out there, and there's a lot of external barriers. Yeah, that's all valid. But let's get real here. We are our own worst enemy, right? May not mean to do it, but what I've seen is like, wow, people who need help, like even me sharing with a friend, a close friend, I didn't get the help I needed. I didn't even get, you know what I mean? It's like, why are we doing that to ourselves? Why is it within our communities, you know, we're blaming, oh, well, we're not getting help here. This is not available to us. That's not available. But hang on a minute. I didn't get any of that help either myself from within my own community. Or people I know very well, you know, my friendship group. So let's just stop blaming other people, shall we? So let's just look at the reality within the community and saying, we are in probably fear mode. We are maybe in some denial. I'll say there's less and less, but there's still a lot of denial. There's some sort of level or standard. You think, well, hang on a minute, because we're Muslim, talk about Muslims in general, we don't do certain things, or how we're perceived. It's all perception. So, well, hang on, I'm a human being first. I'm a human being. I'm flawed, fragile. I make mistakes. But that's okay. We are here to make mistakes, actually. Yeah. We get in our own way to think we must avoid these things. If you're an addict, you can't. There could be lots of factors there. You know, causes. What are the causes? Well, anxiety, depression, family expectation, cultural expectation, financial responsibilities. work demands, our relationship dynamics, being sidelined of opportunities, because there is xenophobia, right? You know, I've experienced that myself many times. Ongoing prejudice, abuse, family abuse, trauma. This is relatable to everybody, right? However, so we can say all this is what I have to deal with. These are all the causes. Yes, but let's just dispel some of let's get to the reality of it. Not the ideal, I have to be a certain kind of Muslim or a certain type of Sikh or Hindu. It's like, I have my flaws and I've experienced a lot of shit in my life. So it's on that list here. So I need counselling maybe. I need some healing. I need some understanding and compassion. I don't need any pressure. I need to be able to have some space instead of being pressured to getting married, maybe pressure to study or pressure to do this or provide for like my family, my external family and all these things. It's like put upon you. It's like, so I've got all this to deal with, and then I'm blaming the fact that I've obviously got prejudice and xenophobia in our wider community. I don't have the resources. People don't understand me, blah, blah, blah. But we don't even do that with ourselves.
Right.
Right?
And all of those things make addiction more likely.
I think it doesn't help. It's sort
and
of contributing, in fact, fueling it and
right.
hiding it more and more and more.
So the one thing that kind of is designed to maybe shut it down or brush under the carpet or whatever is actually making it worse for that individual in that community to get well.
I think so. And it's almost like, well, if you were a good Muslim, that wouldn't happen. Well, that's BS, mate. That's BS. You know, plenty of, like, across the board with anyone coming in for treatments, like, what they really beat themselves up about is, I can't even do this for my kids. Correct. That's right. Because this is an addiction. It is above and beyond God, even above and beyond your kids. So that's the guilt trip, isn't it? It's like, wow, I can't even manage this. Yes, because you're powerless. Step one.
Yeah.
Come to believe, step one.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow. So you're in the same boat as every other addict. So I think we need to kind of stop with the bringing even religion into it. Yes, at some point you can bring that and align that with the values that you have that are important. But let's get the help you really, really need in terms of getting out of your own way and just saying, right, what is it?
Is that something that's
core
still
underlying
said?
issues?
Is that something that's still said? If you were a good Muslim, that wouldn't happen.
Well, I experienced some of that. I would say personally, yes, because I had certain things that have happened to me. And with other friends, it's like going back to the simple thing of divorce. I mean, I'm being mindful of what I say to you. You know why, right? So I'm doing some generalized examples, but when people have said, you got divorced. Okay. I was told that if you were following your religion, that might not have happened.
Right.
And then funny enough, a friend was going through a divorce at the same time who was super religious, and so was her husband. And when I brought that to the table and said, well, hang on a minute. Okay, I may not be religious, but these people are very religious and they're going through a divorce. So it's not necessarily the answer. So if I become more religious, these things won't happen. That is a myth. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you want to debunk some myths, it's like, this isn't about young people. Like I said about the chap who came in who was in his 60s, grandfather, gone on pilgrimage, very religious, cocaine addict. I've had highly successful Muslims coming in, have a double life, shisha lounge in the house, in there with their mates, doing a bit of coke, right, or something, stuff like that. It's like, so let's debunk some of this, and it's not about religion. I think it's more culture. It's a lot more complex, maybe, because we want to blame, don't we? Yeah. And we want to have a solution, a quick solution. There's the solution. There's your faith. They follow this. But actually, that's not the case with addiction. That's what I've seen time and time again. It isn't. Well,
there's so many barriers to break down across the board. And I feel like things have really come on a lot, particularly in the last decade. But it sounds like in certain communities that we've been potentially talking about today, that peeling of those layers is going to take longer, and there's a lot more friction, and there's lots of reasons why, and you've highlighted them really, really well today. Just kind of looking at a vision maybe for the future, maybe particularly in the communities that you've been talking about today, where would you like to see things go sort of in the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years?
Well, obviously, the fact that we can be more honest, and being honest in terms of being authentic. I find that, we talked about this before, about the luxury of being authentic, not necessarily available to everybody, right? Yeah. People talk about to be vulnerable is really powerful, and it does take courage, being vulnerable, right? Yeah. Yeah, but where is that going to happen? Like, in what setting can that be available, right? And it's necessary. But you've got to create the safe environment for people.
It doesn't feel safe for you?
I don't think so, no. But it doesn't feel safe, meaning from people across, I think, maybe Muslim as other groups, ethnic groups. So you have to create that space within our communities, within our leadership, within our, immediate access of, well, hang on, where do I go for help? Where do I find?
Is that about education?
I think it's about education. It's about having more community-based programs. And I know there's a lot more now. There's a lot more community. So where I see immediate change, number one, it could be creating a pathway for all people of BAME, in terms of, right, so here we are. What's the pathway? I have someone, who do they ring? Where do they go to? Right? More accessible resources, but if I put a pathway together to say, right, this is what you do, the next 5 steps, here it all is. This is what's going to happen, and this is the recovery journey, right? So you need a roadmap. People don't have a roadmap. Yeah. And they feel lost, and they get panicked, and they get scared. Yeah. And then all your worst feelings and the worst things that you can probably think are going to happen, right? And so having a pathway for the BAME community, and smoothing the way, and what I mean by that is the obstacles and the barriers. Some of them can be avoided or somehow minimized, right? So instead of going to default action or default setting of, denial, rejection, fear, and all of this, it's like, okay, let's smooth the way and just say, right, let's just own this. Our truths. This person has a problem, right? What are we going to do? So let's smooth the way. And what I was looking at, actually, I kind of thought about on the way here was, sober coaches. Why don't we make a lot more people sober coaches in our communities?
Specifically, who do you, right?
So it could be religious leaders. So if you're in your temple, in your mosques, in your churches, dual roles for those leaders and for different community members associated with those groups.
I agree. I think those kind of people really need education.
They need it, as well as obviously doing counselling courses. They need to do sober coaching courses, right? Accessible to everybody. Yeah. Right. I'm not that I am, but I want to do that as well. But I have other qualifications, right? I thought, well, I could do that, right? It's accessible. You can go online or go face to face. Do recovery coaching. Quite a simple courses.
Thing, but very revolutionary.
Very revolutionary.
And so simple.
So I thought about that today. I thought, wow, we need a lot more of that. Yeah. There are sober coaches. So those people would be, you're coming in, they can go to your house. They can take you to meetings. You could do one-on-one support. That would really break the stigma down and really increase the compassion. It would really help for immediate help. And feel safe. It would start to become safe. It's normalizing it. So we've got people who have counselling experience, and they're all recovery coaches. Because recovery, as I said, it could be not just alcohol and drugs. You're talking about gambling. You're talking about porn addiction, which is massive. Yeah. You're talking about slimming pills. You're talking about social media. So a recovery coach can address all of those things. Yeah. Right? Soon to be video games as well, I'm sure. Soon to be video. So it could be, actually, I want one-on-one with my teenager there who's just glued to social media. There you got a recovery coach. Yeah. And transformative recovery coach. So like when you talk about, what we do is identity, values, self-esteem, that would all be embedded in there. So actually you're going to have someone's like a life coach. Yeah. Really upskilling these people in religious and cultural communities as well. Yeah. Absolutely. Can I ask you something? Because I think I just want the listeners and viewers to just
really understand how passionately you care about this. I mean, I'm sure that's come through anyway in the last hour, but you told me a very powerful story over a coffee. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing it on the podcast. You don't have to. About someone who was being discharged from rehab and the father hadn't forgiven his son, wouldn't even look at his son. I just wondered if you just delve into that briefly, because I think for me, it's a very powerful image of how deeply you care about this.
Yeah. There was a chap who came in from the Hindu community and very similar background to me. I mean, our cultures are just very, I could identify with a lot of things, and he had a lot of shame, massive amount of shame. But he finished his treatment. He was actually near the end of discharge, and I said, we offered at that time family intervention, come on site. And he said, okay, my dad wants to have a word. And as soon as I looked at this family, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be tough for him. Right? Because you go back into that automatic family dynamic. He's a grown-ass man, but he's now a 5-year-old boy in the eyes of his dad. And his dad's looking at him like a failure, even though he's coming to treatment, he's done the right, all the steps. He's really working on his, on his issues. And they're sitting in the room and his dad's not even looking at him. I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen when they leave together, right? And so I approached him as he was my own father. He's no different to my father, right? That's what I saw. And so I think in the conversation that we were having, I was getting closer and closer, and I ended up sitting just like by his feet, really, and just pleading with him, because I had to humanize the fact that, look, you're no different to my dad. And I have really messed up in my life. There's lots of things in my life, and this is I shared certain experiences. And I said, but please forgive your son. Forgive each other. And I think that compassion, this is where the pride, or I don't know, the disappointments and things like that all get messed up, interfering with, this is a pivotal moment of that. I want to be close to my son, and the son wants to be close to his dad. And it's tearing them apart, because dad only knows from a generational point of view of, I came to this country and I've sacrificed everything for you. But he hasn't done this against you. He's hurt himself. And the last thing he wanted to do was hurt his family. Right? So kind of pleading with him, but in a way that I would have spoken to my father of, please forgive your son. So it came very natural to me. Yeah. And I could see that if this didn't happen in this point, I don't know if this would ever happen. And that was the day they left. So it wasn't like we could work on them. It was like they just want to come and just have a quick chat. And then it just went on to quite a long session like that. And then in the end, they came together and they hugged. And it was emotional. It was really emotional. It's probably one of the most emotional things I've experienced. And I've had hundreds, thousands. Yeah. But that one really touched a nerve, because, like I said, his son wants to be close to his dad, wants to be forgiven by his dad. And this is the thing. This is the humanity, right? Yeah. This speaks to all of us. So having compassion, having that forgiveness, if we've got to see beyond the noise, beyond what will the neighbours think, what will the community think, right? We have to see beyond that surface level and go back to, if from all these communities there is a universal truth, whether you're Muslim, you're Hindu, you're Sikh, you're Christian, you're from the Afro-Caribbean community, Greek community, it doesn't matter, right? All communities. I'm talking about those because we have very similar cultures, right? Our families are important. There's a great deal of love, right? We all want the best for each other. So we need to really look at how we can do this with more compassion. To get out of ourselves, get out of the way from each other. Like, my loved one needs help, I'm just going to help them. Park all the rest, with your disappointments, your culture, your expectations, or make it about you. It's not about you. People are drowning, and I think we need to really open our eyes, because we are losing people. There's a high death toll. Right? Not only death toll, but how it affects your mental health massively. It's a crisis now. So let's just come together and actually just look at what's the solution. And we can And how can we be collaborative and create safe spaces that we can really make a difference? And that to me is everything, really. And I think it's all doable. I think it's doable.
Wow. What a beautiful, poignant and powerful way to end our conversation. And I wish we had much more time, much more to talk about. I feel like there might be a part 2 in the future.
There's so many.
You know, I'll definitely be asking you again in the future.
There's so many good ones. I don't know where to
always
go.
The door's always open for a part 2.
I could write a book.
You talk about the stigma being broken down, being done incrementally in small parts. Or
Small steps.
Well, this is, if we're doing a Shawshank Redemption, where they just go every day until we get through. You have just got a big sledgehammer and you've just done a big dent in it. So I hope that this podcast is heard far and wide in the communities and places that it needs to, including my own and everywhere else, because what you've done today is going to really, really help that, all the things that we've been talking about.
I do hope so. That's what it's about. That's setting that intention. Let's set that intention, right? It's not about us. We're here to serve, right?
Yeah,
we're here to make a difference. And there's that exchange, because it feeds our own purpose in life.
Yeah.
But it's about, okay, how am I here to help you? That's it.
And it boomerangs back to that moment you were 16, hearing that speech and that talk in that room that you talked about at the beginning. So come full cycle, and it's now back into your purpose.
It has
and
really
it's like
back.
flip, manifestation, universe, boom, all happening. Raffa, huge thanks for coming down today. We are out of time. Big up yourself.
Thank you.
Been amazing talking to Raffa today. If you want to find out more about Raffa, head to the show notes now. There's going to be a lot more on Raffa there. Guys, if you've been listening to this or watching this on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, please like it, review, rate, do all that good stuff, subscribe, share this with people that you think this is going to benefit. And as promised, and I haven't let you down yet, there will be a new episode in 2 weeks' time. Until then, look after yourself, and thanks for watching or listening.